I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for September 9th, 2014, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Cash.
Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Muy buenas tardes. Si hay alguien del público que necesite los aparatos para la interpretación de esta junta, están disponibles aquí por estas dos puertas dobles. Gracias.
Thank you. And we do have headsets available for the hearing impaired at the side table as well. This brings us to C5, introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our one student speaker from Dos Pueblos High School. This is Ethan, and Alec is with him. So why don't you come on up, Ethan Breyer from Dos Pueblos, who will do our student report.
You want me to stand here?
Yep. Yes, please.
Alec. For a moment there, I'm like, oh, there's an invisible student.
Sorry, bathroom.
So the report from Dos Pueblos is freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior orientations went very well. The leadership class organized, set up, and cleaned up for all of the activities, and they will continue to be involved with activities around school. The first football game was on Friday, August 29th. Unfortunately, we lost 14-20 to Pacifica. The homecoming game is on October 10th, and the homecoming dance will be on October 11th at Earl Warren Showgrounds.
Back to school night for DP will be held on Wednesday, September 10th. And the first Triple E and PTSA meetings were held on Tuesday, September 2nd in the library. There was a large turnout of students, teachers, and parents. San Marcos High School report for this period. Freshman orientation was reportedly a great success this past August 20th. San Marcos welcomed over 600 freshmen to their Link Crew program. The Link leaders are very excited to continue their mentoring during the Royal time period during Term 1. San Marcos welcomed 16 new teachers and counselors as well this year. A memorial service in paddle out for Daniel Perez was held this past Saturday, on September 6th. The annual homecoming football game will take place Thursday, October 2nd at 7 p.m. The homecoming dance will take place at Saturday, October 11th in the HUB at UCSB.
And finally, the report from Santa Barbara High. On Friday, September 5th, a new Dawn back-to-school dance after the football game happened. On Friday, September 19th, Club Rush for all students to learn about and join clubs will happen. On Thursday, September 25th, Senior Sunrise to welcome seniors to the year will occur, and free senior class shirts and breakfast will also be provided. And between October 6th to October 10th, Homecoming Spirit Week, the homecoming football game, and the homecoming dance will happen. Unfortunately, no reports were given from La Cuesta and Alta Vista. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you for starting the school year off for us, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime in the near future.
Great job. On to the superintendent's report.
Yes.
This year, 9 of our schools will benefit from the United Way's Day of Caring. Community volunteers together with hands-on projects that support our schools. And there's still time for individuals to sign up because it will occur on Saturday, September 20th. The event takes place from 9 until 1 o'clock. Tomorrow, the names of our National Merit Scholarship Program semifinalists will be announced, and we'll get that information out to the press and out to members at the dais as quickly as possible. We have started our back-to-school nights, which are always some of the best and informative nights. We'd encourage all of our parents to attend those back-to-school nights, and they continue. And the schedule, it can be found on our home page to our district's website, which identifies the time of each of our back-to-school nights with our schools. And finally, our Special Education Parent Resource Center's new weekly discussion series has started. On September 4th, the topic was Health and Wellness for Back to School. There will be an open discussion on September 11th, and then assistive technology to support student learning on September 18th. And we have flyers in both English and Spanish also at the back table in the back of the room. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. So board, item C7, board comments and correspondence. Mr. Herron?
Just two things. I attended the United Ways United Learning Center opening today, where they have learning support for K through 12. And it was very exciting to see them, what they're doing there, and the results they show anyway looks very, very good. It was a good turnout, good public support, and I look forward to watching how they do. Last night I attended the Adelante board meeting, and they had a very, very financially successful last year, unexpectedly good, in spite of receiving a bill from the school district for over $95,000 covering fees, special ed, and facilities, which was unexpected, but they're happy that they had funds to pay it. Typically, they don't, and typically that kind of end-of-the-year bill would have really shaken the place up. So hopefully we can avoid that in future years, if at all possible, to at least let them know what they might be expecting. And they're up to 256 students, I think it is, that showed up the first 2 days of school.
All right, thank you, Mr. Herron. And we'll go ahead to the announcement of closed session action. We have no action that took place in closed session. We will act on items B1 and B2 a little bit later on the agenda. This brings us to item C9, public comments on non-agenda matters within jurisdiction of the Board of Education. Mr. Herron.
We have two. I'll call both names. You can come up to the podium, and you have 3 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 30 minutes left. 30 seconds left, excuse me. Herman Rios and Erica Pezzi. I apologize if I have the names wrong.
Maybe it's Perez?
Perez, okay, Perez, okay. So Herman Rios first.
There are two Herman Rios?
There are two Herman Rios.
Shall we get, how about, Mr. Tangway, can you get one of our district interpreters in? Thank you.
So Osvaldo.
Osvaldo Castellon? Okay, we can change one of those.
Erika and Teresa.
Sorry. Here.
No están.
That was Osvaldo.
Buenas tardes a todos y cada uno de ustedes, representantes de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de Santa Bárbara. Mi nombre es Germán Ríos y soy padre de familia de uno de los estudiantes de Santa Bárbara Community Academy. Y soy miembro de la clase de Padres Adelante. Primero que todo, me gustaría darles las gracias por la oportunidad de poder expresar nuestras inquietudes ante todos ustedes y al mismo tiempo también agradecer de antemano el tiempo y dedicación que ustedes van a tomar para resolver estas inquietudes. Uno de los motivos por el cual estamos aquí es para preguntarles cuáles son las acciones que se están tomando para resolver el problema del sistema telefónico en las escuelas y en particular en la escuela Santa Bárbara Community Academy. Nos hemos encontrado con dificultades al llamar a la escuela. Muchas de las veces las llamadas no pasan o simplemente se van directamente al correo de voz. Con este punto queremos decir que no tenemos ayuda inmediata a nuestros problemas, tampoco recibimos atención o resolución cuando dejamos nuestros mensajes en el teléfono. No sabemos exactamente si los mensajes son recibidos o simplemente son ignorados. Les agradeceríamos si podrían investigar a fondo cuál es el motivo del problema. Muchas gracias.
If you want to just wait while you get interpreted. Sure. Thanks.
Good evening, school board members and the general public. My name is Germán Rios, and I am a parent at Santa Barbara Community Academy in the Padres Adelante class that is visiting the school board meeting this evening. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to express our requests before you this evening. I also want to thank you in advance for the time and dedication you will make to resolving the issues before you today. One of the reasons we are here is to bring to your attention the need to improve the telephone answering system and to find out what steps will be taken to address this need at our schools, especially at Santa Barbara Community Academy. We have encountered difficulties when calling the school, as the messages often are not passed on, or else they go straight into voicemail and we cannot get through to anyone or receive a reply. This causes a lack of timeliness or lack of immediate help to resolving our problems or to the messages we leave on the phone system. As a result, we never know if our messages were lost in the system or simply ignored. We would appreciate if you could look into what is causing these difficulties with the phone and the message system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Perez, followed by Walter.
Oswaldo? Oswaldo?
Buenas tardes, estimados miembros de la mesa directiva, administradores y público presente. Mi nombre es Erika Peralta y orgullosamente soy madre de una niña y un niño aprendices de inglés y vengo representando a la clase de Padres Adelante de Santa Bárbara Community Academy, cual aquí presentes conmigo. Primeramente, les agradecemos que les ofrezcan desayunos y almuerzos a nuestros estudiantes en todas las escuelas. Asimismo, quiero informarles que los padres del programa que represento aquí presentes y otros padres, al igual que yo, queremos que cambien el estándar de nutrición. En las escuelas, el menú del desayuno y almuerzo, tales como pizza, hamburguesas, burritos, etcétera, que no son nada nutritivos ni antojables, que les aseguro que ni ustedes ni los maestros los comerían, aparte que son causa de obesidad a nuestros hijos. Cuando el manual escolar nos indica que no es permitido mandarles este tipo de alimentos a nuestros hijos como desayuno o almuerzo. Queremos que trabajen de cerca con el administrador de la cafetería para asegurarse de que los estudiantes tengan opciones saludables para el desayuno y almuerzo y así con una mejor nutrición tengan mejor desempeño y aprovechamiento en sus clases. Esperamos que nuestra petición sea tomada en cuenta y veamos resultados muy pronto. Muchas gracias por su tiempo y atención. Que tengan buenas noches.
Good afternoon, dear board members, administrators, and audience. My name is Erika Peralta, and I am a proud parent, mother of a daughter and son who are both English learners, and I come representing the Padres Adelante class of Santa Barbara Community Academy. I am also an ELAC officer and a graduate of the Avance program. First, we thank you that the school district offers breakfast and lunch to our students in all schools. I also want to bring to your attention on behalf of the parents of the class that I represent and who are present here, as well as other parents like me who want to improve the nutritional standards in the schools involving the breakfast and lunch menus, such as pizza, burgers, burritos, pastries, etc. First, let me say that these are not nutritious nor tasty, and I can assure you that neither you nor the teachers would eat these. Aside from the fact that these kinds of foods contribute to obesity in our children. Please consider that the school handbook indicates that it is not allowed for us to send them this kind of food to our children as breakfast or lunch. We recommend working closely with the food services administrator to ensure that the students have healthy options for breakfast and lunch. And so with better nutrition, they will have better performance and achievement in their classes. We hope that our request is taken into account and that we can see very soon the results. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, estimados miembros de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de Santa Bárbara, administradores y auditorio presente. Mi nombre es Osvaldo Castrejón y soy padre de 2 niños aprendices de inglés y vengo representando a la clase de Padres Adelante de la Academia Comunitaria de Santa Bárbara, en donde soy vicepresidente de ILAC y miembro del School Site Council. Al igual, soy graduado del programa Avance y la Academia de Ciudadanos ofrecida por el Departamento de Policía. Quiero agradecerles por el gran trabajo que hacen por la educación de nuestros hijos. Y a la vez quiero pedirles, en acuerdo con los miembros del programa que represento, aquí presentes, que por favor consideren usar los fondos de LCAP o algún otro fondo disponible para incluir en el horario escolar una clase de educación física, ya que al igual que nuestra escuela, otras escuelas no cuentan con un maestro de educación física que instruya a nuestros hijos ejercicios y actividades físicas que los mantengan activos deportivamente. Asimismo, quiero pedirles que organicen competencias a nivel distrito como olimpiadas o torneos después de escuela, para así motivar a nuestros estudiantes a practicar deportes y así estén saludables y no tengan tiempo para ver televisión, que no les ayuda en nada a su salud y aprendizaje. Gracias por su valioso tiempo y la oportunidad que nos dan a los padres de estudiantes aprendices de inglés de expresar las necesidades de nuestros hijos y escuelas. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias. Good afternoon, members of the board of the Santa Barbara School District, administrators, and the general public present. My name is Osvaldo Castrejón, and father of 2 children who are English learners, and I came representing the Padres Adelante class of the Santa Barbara Community Academy, where I am vice president of ILAC and school site council member. I also am a graduate of the Avance program and of the Citizens Academy offered by the police department. I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate the great work you do for the education of our children. At the same time, I also want to ask, in accordance with the parents in the Padres Adelante class that I come here representing, to please consider using LCAP funds or any other funds available to be able to include in the school schedule a physical education class, because our school, as other schools, do not have a physical education teacher to instruct our children in healthy exercise and physical activities that keep them active athletically. Likewise, I ask you to organize district level competitions such as Olympics or school tournaments that will help motivate our students to sports so they are healthy and do not have time to watch TV. Does not help at all with their health and learning. Thank you for your valuable time, for giving us the opportunity as parents of English learners to express the needs of our children and schools. I wish you all good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to just comment, Dr. Cash. The information about the food actually really surprises me, because I know Mrs. Weiss takes food very seriously in this district. So I'm hoping that there's just a misunderstanding of some nature, but I would like to learn more about that.
And Ms. Limon?
I guess I just have a question on that topic. Is our Wellness Council going to be actively meeting this year? And if so, perhaps we should invite members of Padres Unidos to also participate, because it didn't sound like it was one person who thought that. It sounded so.
Well, yes, it will be, and I can answer Mr. Herron's question. There's a salad bar at every school that's available for every student every day.
All right. Thank you. No more public comment?
No.
That brings us to the consent agenda. Board members, any items to pull?
I don't have items to pull, but I did have questions that don't need to be answered right now, but maybe follow up. On item D3, the Save Us Employee Assistance Program, I just would love to see something come back to us in terms of how many employees take advantage of it, just what that rate has looked like over the years. That would be really helpful.
Dr. Christensen, can you get that data? Yeah. Will do.
Thank you. And then a similar question on, let me see. Where is it? Oh, item D7, the teacher induction numbers for that would be great too, in terms of what does that look like? How many have we paired? There wasn't that much information in terms of the materials, and that would be helpful too, to kind of look at things over time. That is it. Thank you.
Mr. Herron?
Just a clarification also of my understanding, to make sure I understand it correctly. On D13, the purchase order, there's 2 items on there to the uninitiated who would look at it, quite hefty for special education. And it's my understanding that's a purchase order for future, to pay bills in the future. It's not an expense for the past. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. So in other words, it just makes it easier to pay bills as they come in, and for the school year coming up. Thank you.
All right, may I have a motion?
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All right, approved. The motion was made by Ms. Limon, seconded by Mr. Herron. All those in favor?
Aye.
It passed unanimously. And that brings us to our public hearings. We do have 2 public hearings today. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and close our regular session and open our public hearing on Resolution 2014-2015-12, adopting the 2013-14 GAN limit. This is item E1. Ms. Chate.
Good evening. This is an annual requirement we have from the state. The GAN limit is intended to constrain the growth of state and local government spending by linking year-to-year changes in expenditures to change inflation, which is represented by per capita personal income, and caseloads, which in this case is average ADA. It is important that school agencies complete this calculation to identify how much state aid counts towards LEA's GAN limit, so that the state can also count it towards their state aid and their own GAN limit. This is annually required, and it is also in your unaudited actuals for tonight. So we're asking that you approve Resolution 2414 to 2015-12.
And we will take action on that on the action agenda shortly. And this is just a time for any questions for Ms. Chate or members of the public. And hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close this particular public hearing and move on to our public hearing, item E2. This is the Resolution 2014/15-14 regarding the sufficiency of instructional materials for year-round elementary schools. Dr. Cash.
I want it noted for the record that Mr. Handel is doing multiple things this evening, and commend him on that.
Don't tell my wife I can do this. So good evening. Tonight is just the opportunity for us to bring forward the sufficiency of materials that we all know have to come before the board. We have to perform an audit within the first 8 weeks for our year-round schools. So these are for Cleveland Elementary and for Santa Barbara Community Academy. We do an audit each year within the first 8 weeks, and we have to bring that forward as evidence or to demonstrate to the public that we do indeed have enough materials for all of our students at these sites. So we're asking for approval of this resolution. It's not, yes, it is a resolution.
And at this point, we're just taking questions on it. Any questions on this? Mr. Herron?
I was curious, one of the books is a 2002 edition. That's not exactly new, but is it still useful and still good?
It is, because it's still adopted by our district, so we have to keep those materials, because when the Williams review comes through, that's also part of being compliant with the Williams Act as well.
No, my question was, is it still a good book? Or
It
materials?
is. They are still good materials, yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Handel, and I'm going to go ahead and close E2, this public hearing on Resolution 2014/15-14, which moves us to the action agenda. We're going to take action on these two items now. F1, the adoption of the GAN limit for 2013-14.
I'll move approval of Resolution 2014-2015-12, adopting the 2013-14 GAN limit.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. And then moving on to F2, this is the resolution regarding sufficiency of instructional materials for year-round elementary schools.
I'll move approval of Resolution 2014/15-14 regarding sufficiency of instructional materials for year-round elementary schools.
Second.
All right, moved by Ms. Idelson and seconded by Dr. Paz. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passed unanimously as well. All right, it's good to have done, but pretty pro forma there. Let's move on to the exciting unaudited actuals. F3, approval. Dr. Cash.
I want to thank you very much, Madam President. This is required by Ed Code and by good accounting practice that the board have an opportunity to review and approve the unaudited actuals. I want to commend Ms. Jete for the great work that she does. I know she will also share in that with her staff. And thank you for doing such a wonderful job putting together a readable and comprehensive report for our board and our public.
Thank you, and good evening. Yes, it takes a lot of people to work all year round, coming from all the way to my coworkers, to site members, principals, and of course our staff. We did really well this year. We made it through our first year of LCFF. With halfway through not even knowing how much funding we were going to get because there was no tool to do so. So it was really an exciting year. It was a learning curve, and we did make some mistakes on the way, but we all did really well. So we should be proud of ourselves, Santa Barbara Unified. So let's go the first on page 5. We're going to look at the local control funding formula dollar amount, which used to be our revenue limit. It's in the narrative, page 5. Okay, so the LCFF decreased by 1%, and that was due to a P-annual adjustment that after working with our charter schools, because charters are, their ADA is calculated we're supposed to use their ADA numbers, P1, P2, and P-annual. Whereas the Santa Barbara Unified District and all regular districts use P2 for funding. So we had a long talk with both auditors and our charter schools and decided that we all agreed that we were going to adjust by annual ADA, and both of our auditors agreed with us. So we did, their ADA went up a little bit at Peabody and for a P-annual, and also our property taxes went down a little bit. So the combination of those two things and their in lieu of property taxes decreased our local funding formula by not this great well, it's complicated. But anyway, it went down a little bit, but then we also had in lieu of property taxes from 1213 that we had booked as a receivable, as a payable in the current year. And that was, so we counted the in lieu of property taxes. We had 13 payments instead of 12, so we had to make that adjustment. That's a long story for something that you probably don't really need to know, so I'm sorry about that. Anyway, but our overall income was just slightly off. We increased a little bit by about $300,000 overall. We had a really good show of foreign students this year. Our administrative costs for charters went up a little bit, and we got some MAW money from 2011-12 for the first and fourth quarter, which we haven't seen any MAW money in years.
And can I just ask real quick, On the federal revenue, it looks like it went from, overall, it's very small, 2,000 to 81,000. In the larger picture, it's small. But I was wondering why it said percent change minus 29%.
I was looking at that today, and all the others are from the 13-14 actuals to the estimated actuals. I flipped this. So it's really, it's more than 29%. I don't know, it must have been a formula error.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see it's way more than 29%.
Okay. So, and I also just want to say that I was looking at this in comparison to the 12-13 actuals, and this percent column change is new, correct?
Yeah, usually I did a dollar amount, and if you would prefer a dollar amount,
I think that this was actually helpful, but I don't know.
We could even do both.
Yeah.
So I'll make note of that. Okay. So the expenditures, as you can see, overall between the classified and certificated on the unrestricted side of the budget, it basically nets to zero. So we did really well on estimating that. It did throw us a little bit with the last minute 2%, 3% that we had to do for the salary increases, but overall, we hit it pretty close. The employee benefits were a little less than we anticipated, and we had people that actually got out of the health and welfare because of Obamacare, went into Obamacare during that time period. Services and operation, we always budget for a certain amount, and fortunately, it came out a little less. On the salaries, on the books and supplies, we always budget to spend, and so do the sites in their budgets, always budget to spend their whole site budget. And annually, it always turns out that we don't. So that's usually where we'll see some decrease from estimated actuals to the actuals. But the big news is on page 7 that we ended the year with $7.5 million in our ending fund balance on the unrestricted side, which is quite a bit higher than we thought we would. And that is the net effect of what happened in income and expenditures. We also have in Fund 17 the $4 million. So we actually come out with a 9.3% ending reserve.
And that's another one where there's that funky minus 67%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because we went from estimated to and subtracted from our unaudited actuals to estimated. The restricted side of the budget is pretty much the same. As far as the revenue is down just slightly in the federal revenue, and that's basically at the end of the year, if we have received the funds but we have not expensed the items, then it comes back as deferred income. So that is kind of like what we've talked about in the past, like carryover. So that carryover is now in the budget and is being budgeted to be spent as we speak. So the expenditures are also pretty much the same as in the unaudited actuals. The books and supplies, we always budget for items to be spent for site-wise and for the district office. So they just ended up not coming in as high as we anticipated. This is where we usually see the biggest.
Ms. Simone?
Sorry, I have a question about that. For the books and supplies, was any of that a function of really not knowing what our books and supplies are going to be in the future because of Common Core? And
yeah.
Then should we expect that it will actually increase in the coming year?
We had carryover from last year, anticipating this and wondering what we were going to spend the money on. You'll get to the next page on page 10 where we have an increase to our fund balance of $1.8 million, and that's 1.4 of that is still or 1.6 of that is still Common Core, because we're waiting for them to decide how they want to spend, how we should spend it on our instructional materials. Okay. We also have lottery money that we're holding on to because we're getting again, we're waiting for that to happen. Dr. Drotti and Emilio are chomping at the bit to get hold of that money.
All right, thank you.
Any questions? Wow.
I'm going to go back, actually, I have one question, and that's just all the way up at the very, where is it? Okay, on page 2, where there's the references to various forms, and one of them is the Form CEA, percentage of current cost of education expended for classroom compensation. And it's 55% for Unified School District, and we're right at 55.4, and that's down about 1% or so, I'd say, from 12-13. And I'm wondering how, I mean, you must be working constantly with human resources to make sure that we have appropriate expenditures in this area. How does that work?
Well, one of the reasons why, if you went back and looked at our second interim, you would see this report that it was under 55%. And the reason why is, we have that the EPA account, the Economic Protection Account, and what we do is you have to have teacher salaries put to that. So what we would do is move from the general fund into that account, which is all still on the unrestricted side of the budget. It's just moving between unrestricted resources. So that was part of, and the lottery, we used to do the super unrestricted lottery. We used to put staff into the 1100s. So that was excluded out of this calculation. So once we adjusted that, it came back up to 55%. And over. But yes, that is something that's one of the first things that we look at and see what we're doing accounting-wise that's not helping that situation. In this case, it was just putting the people in the right buckets.
Okay.
So yes, we do. I'm pretty confident that percentage will go up.
Okay. Great. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Herron?
On page 10, the very last 4 words, in defining what the restricted fund says, is that Kia and 1 million in donations, or is it 1 million in donations that are included in that number?
Kia is separate from that. It's $1 million in donations across the district.
And it says that's restricted.
Yes.
Restricted for what?
For the site use only. So foundations donate in there, private people who give money to the sites, we put that in there. We put it on a 9,000 account, which is all site location donation accounts.
So there's $1 million in there that sites haven't spent? Do we have a feeling why, or were they long-term commitments, or?
No, they're usually, they raised more money or they got more money donated. It would really depend, or they're stocking it to buy something bigger the next year. That's not uncommon to see those accounts run about $1 million high at the end of the year.
In the MA money, who spends that, and do the schools get some of it back?
We do a participation, a 15% back to the people who generate the money. That's a process, and it's in the actual budget right now that for that money, $77,000 or $81,000 came in, and we're going to allocate it out. Actually, they put in a rec and asked for the money that way. But I don't know if you guys remember this, but remember when the city said, we're not going to pay for your crossing guards anymore?
Yes.
We took 50% of that. We had to pay 50% of the crossing guards, and that's where that money was coming out of. So all these years that we did not get MA, we were still paying 50% of the crossing guards. And so now we're hoping to put that money kind of in that bucket to help fund the crossing guards this year.
Right. All right. Thank you. We do need action on this.
Well, is that the end of your presentation? We've got 100 more pages. I mean,
yeah.
I will answer any more questions you would like to have on this budget or this actuals.
Thank you. I do. On page 11, The first is the state revenue from $6.8 million down to $3.8 million, and other locals, $10.9 million down to $3.7 million. And that's about $11 million, no. It's a big reduction. What causes that much reduction?
Okay, so, I'm sorry, where are you?
Number 3, other state revenue went from $6.8 million last year to a budget of $3.8 million. So that's down
Okay.
$3 million.
Gotcha. Remember, when we do our adopted budget, we often do not, we cut the federal funding by 10% because the federal funds budget doesn't come out until September. And we always decrease that by 10%, plus we do not budget any carryover. And if you look on the restricted to restricted side, there's where the $3 million is.
And then the other local revenue went from $10.9 million to $7.2 million.
Well, we do not budget for all the donation accounts at that time either as adopted budget, because we don't know what sites are going to be budgeting or how much they're going, PTAs, foundations are going to contribute. So the adopted budget is a very basic, very skeleton picture of what the year is going to be. First interim is going to when that all kind of comes together. We know exactly how much staff we have. We know how much the donations are, those types of things. We know the federal budget.
And then line 5, services and other operating expenditures. Last year were $15.7 million, but the budget's going to go up to $19.1 million. Any idea what the increase for services and operating expenditures, the increase in the budget?
I'd have to get back to you. I don't remember 100% what's in that number for the adopted budget.
It just seems a big change. Going on to page 17. Down under travel and conferences, towards the bottom. From 567,000 up to 754,000, a 32%, 33% increase. Are we going to be doing more travel and conferences, Dr. Cash?
Absolutely. We are, the most important thing we're doing right now is implementing the Common Core and creating technology learning environments, and that's something that we are looking to build lateral capacity throughout our entire district. So I would anticipate a lot more money being spent on professional learning over the next 10 years than we probably have spent in the previous 10.
And that's all out-of-town travel and out-of-town
Not
conferences?
necessarily, no.
But this, okay. This is travel and conferences, so.
Right. Some of those are here in the tri-counties.
What is OPEB operations? Okay, that
It's other.
I know that's what how you say it. What is it?
That's other employee benefit plan. That is our unfunded liability for our employees. You know how we always have an actuarial? We're a pay-as-you-go, so we calculate that in every payroll, and that we take a portion of the district side and put it into that fund to fund that unfunded liability that we have.
Because that went up quite, I don't have it here, it went up quite a bit. Is that just normal?
Well, usually where do you see that it went up? Because
I think it went up 200,000 or something like that.
Well,
I don't know where I saw it.
you mean on the, as far as from the actuals to the adopted budget?
Right.
Yeah, we were overestimating the amount, so we lowered it for this. When we got halfway through, we lowered it this year because we were accumulating more money than we had to pay to fund it.
Thank you.
That's a tremendous business practice this district engages in, thanks to Ms. Jeté, that many school districts do not engage in, and that is ensuring that we adequately have the funds now to pay for those post-employment benefits that we, in the past, have guaranteed for employees.
All right, any other questions? I do need action on this.
I will move to approve the unaudited actuals for 2013-2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item F4, approval of the Memorandum of Understanding and Facilities Use Agreement between the Santa Barbara Unified School District and the Santa Barbara Charter School.
Well, this is a matter for both Mr. Handel and Ms. Jeté, because it involves one of our elementary schools, and it involves insurance.
Well, I know this has been a long process in terms of getting this MOU and FUA in front of you, but as we wrestled through the revisions of both the FUA and the MOU to the Santa Barbara Charter School, we really, wanted to take a look at it and make sure everything was up to date. One of the things that did surface, and we can attribute this, and I'll give you all the credit for finding some discrepancies in insurance coverage. And so we went through the process of trying to calibrate our other MOUs with Peabody and Adelante to make sure all the language was the same. In the process of that investigation, we found some issues that need to be addressed. And at this point, I'll let Ms. Jeté explain it to you in her fiscal jargon so that it is best communicated.
So during the time where we're reviewing Adelante's FUA and MOU, I started thinking about, gosh, the insurance is so much different. So I pulled Peabody's FUA and MOU, and then I pulled Santa Barbara's. And so I called our attorney, our charter attorney, and was asking her some questions about that because they drafted the MOU and FUA regarding Santa Barbara Charter. And through a conversation with her and CISC for our liability insurance, it's come to the conclusion that, one, we do not interfere in their the charter's operating daily operations. We don't have any say in them, and we don't sit on their governing board. So in theory, that they are an independent charter. Even though they're in our books for Santa Barbara Charter, they are independently viewed by this attorney and by CISC as not being part of the district. So therefore, we had to rewrite both the MOU and the FUA regarding the insurance so that they both tie to each other. We contacted the charters, we had a conversation, they're all clear on their responsibilities. So that's why we had to bring you back the Santa Barbara Charter and the FUA for Santa Barbara Charter and the MOU to have it redone. And Dave Weissman has already signed it, and he understands.
I guess I have a question. Because of this, will we be seeing the MOUs for the other charters, or was it only Santa Barbara Charter that was under CISC?
The Adelante's coming up for renewal, and Peabody's in the next year. So when we do this, we're going to do them all the same. And we're going to do them all right.
Okay. Any questions on either that or on any aspect of either one of these documents? I guess Mr. Handel, my question is, was Santa Barbara Charter completely okay with everything that was here? This was totally mutually agreed?
Completely. Okay. There was a lot of communication between our office and Mr. Weissman.
All right. I do need a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of the Memorandum of Understanding and Facilities Use Agreement between the Santa Barbara Unified School District and the Santa Barbara Charter School.
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Paz. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are now at item F5, approval of the Memorandum of Understanding with the California School Employees Association. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This matter was negotiated. We do have Mr. Tangway present to answer any questions, but because the matter was negotiated with CSEA, who has already ratified it, it's before you for your approval.
All right. Any comments for Mr. Tangway?
Just when Dr. Cash knows, there's just one word in there that I think is misplaced, but Dr. Cash will talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Simone?
Just a reminder that I will have to abstain from this.
All right. I do need a motion.
All right. Move to approve the memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees Association.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
That passed with Parker, Herron, Idelson, and Paz in favor, no members against, and Ms. Limon abstaining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item F6, approval of Resolution 2014-2015-11, acknowledgements related to the applications received by the State Allocation Board that are beyond the bonding authority. Dr. Cash.
We have Mr. Hetyank here to present this resolution, and I think it's appropriate at this particular time.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. You have approved resolutions similar to this for other projects where we are getting in line for state matching funds. These two projects are significantly different in that they contain earthquake or structural safety, and based on that, they go to the top of the line. Our project for the gym arches at San Marcos High School is currently underway. And as soon as we obtain one more piece of information, if this resolution is approved, then we can apply for our funds and hopefully get them released, because these types of projects are the only things that are being released right now. Our other project that's under design right now is our Peabody Stadium renovation. And so ahead of time, passing the resolution acknowledging that basically what you're stating is you acknowledge that nothing is guaranteed from the state for the money that they appropriate to us. And they want you to acknowledge that before they will allow you to process the funding application. We've received conceptual approval on both of these projects, and I believe that documentation was attached as the agenda item. And so the gym arches will go first because the plans are complete and DSA approved, and we have contract award with the notice to proceed, where we're not that far along yet on the Peabody Stadium project. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Herron?
I'll move approval of Resolution 2014-2015-11.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hetyank.
Thank you.
Look forward to that. Hopefully getting some money, that would be nice. That moves us to F7, approval of the amended 2014 to 2017 strategic plan.
So I'm sure we'll get this up on the overhead with Mr. Handel's deft technology dexterity. We tried to Ms. Kiani put this in a Word document, and we took out all of the pictures and the graphics so that it might be easier to go through. There's an attempt to track the changes based upon the notes that were taken by Ms. Trujillo, myself, and Ms. Kiani in relationship to the special board meeting that was held this summer. We can go through each one of the track changes. There's not a lot. There's, I think, 26. Or we can take questions, or I know you board members have had an opportunity to review it, whatever, make additional changes, whatever is your pleasure.
All right. Board members, do we want to just go through this sort of section by section if we have comments on section 1, and we'll take your suggestions at that point. So let's start with section 1, aim 1, action step 1 area. Comments, corrections, additions? Mr. Herron.
Just one question. On the bottom of page 2, within 1 year was crossed off, and now it says by 2017. And the very first item is to create, I guess, and implement a visual and performing arts strategic plan. Are we going to have that created before 2017?
Yes, oh yeah, you're going to have that hopefully soon.
That's my question, because by reading this, I got the impression that it's not going to be done until 2017.
No.
So would you suggest, Mr. Herron, that that might say by 2015? Because that's the only one in that.
No.
Well, I guess
They go all-
everything has gone to, they've
all the
got rid
years
of
are-
all of those.
all the years
Yeah,
are
all the
taken out.
years have been erased because of the kind of sequencing of events that have occurred. Some things have, because of both the Common Core implementation and LCFF and the LCAP process, have gotten ahead of other things in relationship to kind of a tight timeline within 1 year, within 2 years, within 3 years, kind of. So the thinking was, these are the things that will be accomplished over the next 3 years.
Yeah, I understand. That's why I understood that, but it just somehow made me uneasy that this could be pushed off for a couple of years.
Well, you're going to see the draft strategic plan for your approval in October, I believe.
Board members, how do you feel about that? Just giving it essentially a little bit more flexibility in those areas, but there is also the risk that some things may get pushed off that we don't want to have pushed off. Any thoughts? I don't know if there's a better way of putting it.
Well, I could certainly bring it forward to the board regularly, and you could, I mean, we could have it as an agenda item. It's been on the agenda, I think, 2 or 3 times a year. We could continue that or make it more often, and you could then direct me and my staff on, you know, we want you working on this. Where's the progress on that?
Yeah, I guess that makes good sense. All right, thank you.
The other on that same, on page 3, the 1K, a one-to-one computing program at at least 25% of the district schools. Again, that's between now and 2017. Aren't we almost at 25% now with the 4 schools? What's 25%, like 6 schools? Or?
Yeah, and we're not there, and you know, we just got our evaluation template for the one-to-one iPad that you'll be seeing or some input on soon. And so I would imagine that is a goal that could be modified depending upon how the program's evaluated.
Okay, because 25% by 2017, is that the 17-18 year? Is that what you're talking about?
No, 16-17.
16-17,
Correct.
okay. 25% seems low, but okay.
Other board members on this just action step 1 for aim 1? I did have some suggested additional language for item 1D, because one of the things I talked about in that meeting is wanting to be sure that we address the FAIR Act. And so I thought it might fall nicely under 1D, develop additional measures that provide a more complete description of student achievement and success in our schools. And so it goes on to the next sentence about school climate surveys, district academic benchmarks, but then to modify the last sentence so it says, these could also include measures such as FAIR Act compliance indicators and other markers to be developed within the next 2 years. If that seems reasonable. All right.
Can you send me that language?
And I can send that language to Dr. Cash.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to action step 2. This is improve outcomes for special education students. Additions, changes. Mr. Herron?
On 2C, on page 4, I'd like to suggest adding a word, but I'll defer to Helen. Continue working to provide appropriate assistive, I'd like to add, and adaptive technology. I've been reading, and to me I've found that there seems to be a slight difference. Adaptive technology are things that are created specifically for children with disabilities, where assistive can be a broad array of things. So adaptive is sort of a subset of assistive, but I'm really concerned about the adaptive portion. I'm concerned more with the new modern science behind helping children. And so I'd like to add after assistive and adaptive, but maybe Helen has different thoughts on that.
No, I would agree. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I would agree, because we are moving in this technology world, that there are devices that are being developed, and eventually they will make its way through the IEP process. So yes, we are addressing the assistive piece with our students with special needs and our general ed population, but I would agree, Mr. Herron, that we should add adaptive.
Thank you. So I would like to add that.
All right, so adding the term "and adaptive" in after assistive. Dr. Paz?
You'd also have to change it in page 4. No, excuse me, page 5 at the top of page 5.
Yes, so there's a bullet at the top of page 5 under 3C, including assistive and adaptive technology for students with disabilities.
Thank you.
Ms. Dimon?
So on the top of page 4, having completed district implementation of 2009 fiscal crisis and management assistant team recommendations, if I recall correctly, there were some items that were going to be not completed, but work in progresses for the rest of our lives. And so I guess the word completed is, I'm having a little bit of a hard time with it. And so one alternative could be using the 2009 fiscal crisis and management assistant team recommendations, create and implement special education strategic plan. But I don't want to undermine how much, there are things that are completed, but at the same time I think of the whole plan as, well, not everything's completed. So I'm open to board recommendations if you have a different word for completed, or if there's another way to say that.
You could say using as a reference or using, but I think using is okay. I just thought in looking at that should be under by 2017 and not something that's done annually. I just felt like we had put that in as just always go back and reference this particular document, but if we're going to go ahead and create a strategic plan that maybe uses that as a foundation, and certainly we've learned so much from it and will continue to, but that's just something that has to happen by 2017 rather than happening every year, because you wouldn't create a strategic plan every year.
Ms. Rodriguez, do you have any recommendations or thoughts?
I understand what your point is, maybe having addressed district implementation of 2009, because yes, I would agree, our strategic plan is based on the recommendations of the FCMAC report. In fact, we have the 4 goals, and then we emerge that with our district plan, strategic plan.
And I could live with addressed.
All right, so it would say, having addressed district implementation of the 2009 fiscal, it's the FCMAT recommendations, comma, create and implement a special education strategic plan, but let's move that down to by 2017. And that will stay as 2A. And, all right, anything else in that section? Moving on to action step 3, provide continuous learning for staff. Any comments on that one? We already had the one for the top of page 5 on assistive and adaptive technology. On 3E, my suggestion was, instead of continue partnership, to say continue partnering with the new Santa Barbara City College Center for Lifelong Learning. All right, so with that change, anything else? What about on action step 4? Ms. Simon?
I just have a question. I cannot remember why we decided to take out 4H.
Increase the number and percentages of underrepresented student subgroups enrolled in advanced classes in grades 7 through 12.
Because it's 4B.
Yeah, it's not taking it out, it's just changing the yeah, it got moved up to 4H
Gotcha.
got moved up to 4B.
Thank you.
Mr. Herron.
I had a question on 4I. This whole section is by 2017, but this particular one uses 2015-16 as a...
Yes, that's as a result of our Equal Opportunity Schools grant that we have, which we're working with our high schools this year to have that done by in our master scheduling by next year.
Any other thoughts on that action step 4? All right, action step 5, meet the holistic needs of students. There's a number of changes there. Any other adaptions or changes? Okay. And action step 6, integrate career technical education technology and teaching 21st century skills. Nope. All right, so the changes there we can all live with. Action step 7, enhance early education opportunities. Maybe I should ask, do members have anything further in a later part of the document? All right, if we don't, then these are all things that we talked about when we actually reviewed the strategic plan, and these are the changes that are in there are viewable by the public by looking at our website, and we can go ahead and make a motion.
I will move to approve the strategic plan for 2014-2017.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
That's with the changes.
With the changes.
With the
Thank you,
changes.
Mr. Herron.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to board action on the approval, denial of interdistrict transfer appeals. And we have one case, and I'm trying to see where, if we put the number out, you'll have to open up your...
I've got it.
All right, Mr. Herron.
I move we deny the appeal for case number 2014/15-8.
I will second that.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passed unanimously. And then we're at item F9, board action on the request for petition for readmission of expelled students.
I move that we accept the reentry from expulsion for case number 2012-13-15 and 2013-14-17.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're moving now to the conference agenda. Item G1, discussion of certificated management job description for Coordinator 2, Visual and Performing Arts Coordinator. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This job description is the first of a number of documents in relationship to an emerging strategic plan in visual and performing arts. The job description that Dr. Christensen will present is in collaboration with the, I think they're loosely calling themselves the Santa Barbara Arts Alliance group, where I've met with them 3 times. And so here it is, Dr. Christensen.
Yes, good evening. So as Dr. Cash stated, the purpose of this conference item is to discuss with the board the job description for the VAPA Coordinator 2, a certificated management position. And by way of correction, I would like to note that there are 2 corrections to the job description. They're both extremely minor. Prior to your input, that is, on page 1, bullet 4. Instead of I, it should say in. I'll make that correction. And also on page 2, under additional duties, instead of PUSD, it will be SBUSD. So I want to note that those 2 corrections will be made. So pending that, what are your questions? Mr. Hondell has also had a lot of background working with a group that led up to this point. So either one of us can field your questions.
Board members? Ms. Simone.
For the public, I don't know if we want to say anything about where funding for this position may come from. It's not coming from our
There will be
initially.
another agenda item, hopefully at the next board reading. Did I say reading? Meeting. Where we'll be presenting a memorandum of understanding in relationship to funding of the position.
Dr. Paz.
Can we also, at that point in time, also discuss beyond that MOU's period of time or implementation, what is our plan for this position?
It will be included in the MOU.
Post that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Simone?
So then this is on action. Does it make...
No, it's conference.
We're already on conference. We are. Thank you. Never mind.
All right. So it sounds like we don't have a lot of comments or questions on this.
Okay.
So you've done a nice job on it. Thank you. And thank you for catching those typos.
Yes, thank you very
All
much.
right.
It's too early to be on conference.
She's a former English teacher, Dr. Christensen, so she...
All right, and then we have G2, discussion of current student enrollment for 2014-2015 school year. Dr.
Well, as board members know, we post the agenda on Friday, and we have new data on Tuesday, and Mr. Torina is going to share with us what we had and where we are today.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. As presented and what was sent to you last week was day 5 of our hard counts, and what hard counts are actually bodies and seats. So we've had our administrators go to every classroom every day for the last 9 days, and look at who's sitting there and count the number of students. So you have before you in the document was the count as of last week, and if you have any questions about that, I can answer those. And if you'd like to get numbers of what was counted today, I can give you those.
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, so for Adams, we had 558. Now, these are actually bodies and seats.
So this is not enrollment. This is actual people there, not enrollment.
And if you want enrollment numbers, I can give you those as well.
No, I think bodies and seat, we'll try to compare apples to apples here. So this is, okay, this is great. So this is the document that we all have, and you're about to give us day, what are we at, day 8, day 9?
Day 9.
Day 9 today.
Okay, so day 9.
So Adams had 558. Both Adelante and Cleveland are unchanged since they are a year-round school. They have 249 and 386. Franklin today had 577. Harding had 404. McKinley had 400. Monroe had 467. OAS had 160. Roosevelt had 585. SB Charter and SB Academy are unchanged. Washington had 608. Alta Vista has 1 in the junior high. Goleta Valley has 740. La Colina Junior High had 799. La Cumbre had 474. Santa Barbara Junior had 795. Alta Vista High School had 141. Dos Pueblos had 2,132. La Cuesta Continuation had 103. San Marcos High School had 2,100. Santa Barbara High School had 1,994.
2,000. 1,000?
1,000.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the Santa Barbara High number?
1,994. To let you know, there was also 257 absences listed.
Yeah, okay. I'm just, of course, the big changes are Alta Vista and Santa Barbara High. Can you talk, I mean, obviously, this is about kids being sick, when you were looking at minor differences, but those are both, there's a big jump up today for Alta Vista and a big drop down for Santa Barbara High. So I don't know if you can talk about those two numbers.
Alta Vista is, includes our Quetzal and our independent study program, and also our middle college. So those numbers would fluctuate as students were either recommended from camp or are returning from an expulsion or still on a suspended expulsion. They would increase the Quetzal numbers. Also, a lot of students who are coming from out of district who are not caught up on credits but don't qualify for the La Cuesta program. They may want a different program instead of La Cuesta because it's a continuation school and it's on a day-to-day basis. So the numbers for Alta Vista changed due to that. Santa Barbara High School, I just say it's the absences, and there was an issue with our call-out system in regards to calls going home for parents from students who were absent. That has been, as far as I know, rectified as of last Friday. So today's absentees were an anomaly, and hopefully by the end of tomorrow, at our full 10-day counts, we'll be able to solidify that number. Santa Barbara actually has swung almost 60 to 70 students on a day-to-day basis over the last 3 days. So,
Dr. Paz.
For me, the numbers, even without the adjustments today, the one area that I look at is this junior high. area that, I mean, I even look at the other numbers, but they, you know, you can look at those in day-to-day swings, year-to-year swings. But the junior high, especially if you look at the total numbers for the elementary, looks like we're still on an upcrease. And then you look at the high school ones, similarly. But the junior high is just, that is taking a hit. Goleta Valley, in particular. But if you look at La Cumbre and Santa Barbara Junior High, it's still 80 between both of them. So those numbers look really like, what's happening?
Low, you know, all of our junior highs, except for La Cumbre, have many of their students from our component school districts, Montecito, Cold Springs, Goleta, and Hope, and low 6th grade numbers graduating, and high 8th grade numbers going on to 9th grade. So that's what happens over time. What's interesting is that Goleta Union, along with Santa Barbara elementary schools, our 5th grade is packed to the gills. There's not a seat. Do we have any 5th grade seats? Did any open up?
I found one today.
Okay. And that's true, at least in Goleta, and checking with Bill Banning.
Okay.
Same kind of thing, and kind of, I think, reflects kind of the natural small deviations that we had. When I was the principal at Goleta Valley, we swung as many as 200 kids over 5 years. And Goleta Valley, almost 100% of their students come from the Goleta Union School District. So.
Okay.
It's not off our projections as far as what we projected. We had, I think, a very vigorous and awesome conversation this morning about our projected numbers, how we staffed versus what we're seeing as far as hard counts and enrollments, and we're all fine in relationship to that.
Ms. Adelson.
Would you explain, there's a 10-day count, and then that's what budgetary things are based on? Is that?
It's what we use to staff with. It's kind of what we make our final staffing decisions on in relationship to hiring new staff, or, you know, we've hired some teachers as subs to start the year, and if those teachers would then become probationary teachers, or we'd release them depending upon the count. We still have up to, I think it's 25 days in which to kind of reshuffle the classes. We try to do it as quickly as possible.
So if a significant number of students are absent, say on day 10, will that affect this, or you'll average it?
There's a lot of things that we look at in relationship to that, including do we have students who have been absent multiple days? So if we have a student who has been absent, you know, we've been open for 10 days, they've been absent 3 days, we've called, haven't been able to get a hold of anybody, that's a student we have to drop. But if we have a student that's been absent, you know, like, you know, 1 day here, 1 day there, and we've communicated to the parent, that won't have any impact whatsoever. So there's a lot of work that has to go into this, because we have to staff so tightly at the beginning of the school year. And there's a lot of checking and rechecking. I mean, Mr. Tarina and I think Mr. Handel joined him, that we were out at every elementary school, looking actually physically at, do we have any empty classrooms? You know, what could we, if we need to use this classroom, this room as a classroom if we needed to, et cetera. So. And this doesn't include about 28 TKK students that we haven't placed yet.
Still need to place.
That we are going to place hopefully by the end of the week.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the reason also that we keep our 10-day, because there are a lot of parents and families that do move out, as you know, from some of our inter-district appeals, and they don't inform us that they're leaving. So our schools are calling them, and hopefully they will get some type of confirmation or affirmation that they're coming or that they've left.
And if you haven't got any affirmation, if you just haven't heard from them after day 10, they're just dropped?
We will drop them.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And this brings us to G3. This is the report on summer 2014 professional learning activities.
Dr. Drotti and Mr. Handel are going to co-present this, because we had both elementary school teachers and secondary teachers.
Board members, what you have access to is two documents. One is a description of all the different professional learning activities that took place during the summertime. And also, one of those, we had an extensive evaluation of, and so the second document is an analysis of that evaluation, which is focused on the elementary experience. So with that said, I know you guys, I'm sure you have some questions.
Board members? Dr. Paz.
In terms of the evaluation, you know, there were a lot of positive comments, a lot of folks that seemed to enjoy a lot of things, but, you know, in an effort to always improve, I'm sure you're thinking about what to improve, even despite all the good comments. So what were some of the things that did stick out that, you know, that you looked at across all the professional learning opportunities that could be improved for a next go-round?
I'll go ahead and answer that. One of the things that we're struggling in, you can see just across the board in our district, is the amount of English language development support that our teachers really need. There is going to be a change in the, well, there has already been a change in the ELA, ELD framework that came out, but there's also going to be changes in the CELT tests. And one of the things that our folks that we're struggling with is to provide our teachers the support, not just in ELD instruction, the pedagogy, and all the systemic support that our EL students need, in particular for our teachers, which is the focus of this presentation, but is being able to provide them a concrete system of support throughout the year, and to articulate a system of support for our TK through K English learners. We're seeing a decrease in our English learners because of the focus the last few years, but we still are absent a support in our primary grades for a specific intervention to support our English learners from TK to 3, and to really make our system much more robust from grades 4 through 12. So as we went through this evaluation, you know, obviously I didn't present this well enough. I'll expand that in a second, but we need to put more time and effort into building those protocols and then sharing those with our teachers and developing a much better and succinct system of support of our teachers and our students, our EL students. And we're hoping with the support of Dr. Ramirez, we'll be able to really get that off the ground, because we know that that's an area that we're really hurting in. And we also have a teacher on special assignment, Natalie Ireland. I almost said the name. Natalie Ireland, to help us move in that direction as well. So reading all that, we saw a lot of great content, a lot of pedagogy that was presented to our staff, and with our restorative approaches you have on the other document, you see everything from the beginning of summer, the beginning of January, all the way up until a few weeks ago. There was a tremendous amount of training, but we know in the area of English language development and supports for our English learners is an area that we really have to put some more energy in.
And just to add more, another theme that came out was the teachers appreciated the fact that they were able to work collaboratively. But the issue with that is time. They also recognize there's going to be a lot more they need to learn. As they learn, they recognize what they didn't know and what they need to do. So the question then comes into, okay, when do we find the time? And so that's a dilemma we have in the system.
One question that I had was, with the design of the survey, you can see that all the different workshops or trainings that teachers were going to, but I wasn't sure if it allowed you to cross-correlate in terms of the, you were in this section and you strongly agreed or strongly disagreed about its effectiveness, because it's great to see how many thought that these trainings were great, but I wasn't sure if all of the strongly disagree with it being a successful training were in a particular workshop.
We weren't able to disaggregate that information. we were able to recover a lot of qualitative data in terms of the comments at the end of the surveys that provide us a lot of guidance. So we're able to kind of tease that out in terms of the comments, because the comments were pretty direct in referencing which session they went to.
Okay.
But as far as being able to tease that out with the information, we weren't. We wanted a tool, a very simplistic tool, to be able to get some feedback to help us guide us for our next training. And again, this particular survey was only for the summer elementary Professional Learning Institute, so it wasn't for all of the professional learnings that have occurred throughout this entire summer.
Can I ask about that, though? How many elementary versus secondary took advantage of what was available in the summer?
You know, it was pretty interesting. We weren't sure what was going to happen, but because of the tremendous efforts of Amy Alzina and my assistant, Marina Gamboa, they were able to coordinate a system where we were able to register teachers and be able to track those numbers. And we had roughly, I'm thinking about 300 elementary teachers participated, and that's not bad.
No, that's good.
That's great.
Yeah, that's
What
not
about
bad.
secondary?
In terms of secondary, we also, it came down to the need. I think there was a major need to focus on the units. The whole focus of the professional learning for Common Core was to be able to develop units for when school started. And I think secondary was already ahead in terms of the pullouts. So they had their units already developed. So when the invitation went out to create more units, we recognize, our belief is that the teachers recognized that since they were ahead, that there was no need to come in this summer. They planned on continuing with the unit process throughout the year, the following year. And in terms of restorative approaches, you'll see we probably had up over 100 people there, because that was something new that the new schools that were implemented restorative approaches needed to learn. So because of the need, they showed up in numbers. And so it really had to do with what was in front of them.
Okay. Dr. Paz?
You know, besides what we have for Common Core and what's in the strategic plan, what are other forces drive you to offer what's offered in what we have in front of us today?
So one of the things we've been talking about for the last year or so is what's going to drive our professional learning is really our professional learning communities and what comes out of those meetings. That's really the vehicle that's going to drive our needs, if you will, because we believe that within those professional learning communities, the needs will be crystallized, or they'll bubble to the surface. And as administrators, we'll be able to glean that information from our folks, but also we'll take the formal step of conducting a survey as well. A survey is actually mandated, I believe, by Title II to be able to put together our professional learning plan. So that's something that we do informally as administrators, but we also get information from our teachers to the professional learning communities, and we also have to do formally through the Title II professional development piece as well.
And so one of the things that comes to mind, especially like there were a number of items tonight, we were talking about using data, and you actually mentioned one, the EL learners. We've had data presented to the board in terms of that. So I look at that as another source of, you know, what drives professional learning. If there's a gap, if there's an area that data is showing that there's need, right, beyond what teachers recognize, because that could be just, you know, it's triangulating your data. It's looking at the individuals participating, but also looking at your data from the student perspective. Also, obviously, taking into account, you know, we have a wider community that also has needs, and we've responded to that, obviously, through the adoption of a local control accountability plan, and we're looking at it through that lens as well. So that's something else that, you know, I would love to hear more as we move forward, looking at data and seeing how that comes back to being reflected in the professional learning plan, that would be something to also consider in terms of all that.
So that'll actually be part of the needs assessment that we'll be doing, conducting a needs assessment and using that data that you're referring to be able to gain data or get information about how all of our different subgroups are doing, and then be able to create a plan based or revising our current LCAP to align better to the needs of what we're seeing through our data. So that's going to be an ongoing process that we're going to have throughout the year, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing that in the next, for the near future.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Simone.
Since we just did the strategic plan and changed something about it, I thought, wow, I wonder how the FAIR Act is embedded in any of the training that was done. And I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
You're going to get information on what's happened in relationship to the FAIR Act. I could
Is
give it to you
it
tomorrow.
embedded in any of the trainings that?
Embedded? No.
I feel like I saw it somewhere.
Yes, what you saw was on a professional learning plan, so we'll talk, I guess,
And then the
it'll
next
be
item.
addressed in that, yes.
Gotcha.
So I guess you mean like embedded into what?
So if there was, topics where it would be appropriate in English language arts or in history or so forth. So I didn't know if there was a place for it to be
Well,
embedded.
let's go ahead and roll into G4, the update on the 2-year professional learning plan, because I think that'll fit it nicely.
Absolutely. So what you have in front of you are two documents. One is a PowerPoint, which is a summary of what we've done in the last 2 years. And you have another document, which is a longer one, a much larger one, is the full professional learning plan. So what we did in creating the PowerPoint was we extrapolated what we did accomplish and put it so that way you don't have to navigate through that big document. So with that said, we'll wait here and let you ask questions.
All right, well, let's open that up. It is easier to look at the PowerPoint, although I appreciate having the full detail. And obviously, one of the things Ms. Limon just brought up, and maybe I should open this in iBook so I can search for it, but...
So I saw that it's in 1314 under cultural
proficiency, yes.
So I didn't know if that's...
Yes, so in terms of the FAIR Act, we partner with UCSB Jeffrey Stewart, Professor Jeffrey Stewart. You all met him because he did a presentation from the board. Anissa Stewart and also Jackie. We've been working closely with them, and they have put on professional learnings for the last 2 years in which our social science teachers participated. Our first professional learning involved the PLC leaders, in which they got in-depth knowledge about the FAIR Act and the possibilities. And the other ones ended up being, the junior highs at a minimum day, we actually had Jeffrey Stewart come talk to the entire staff about the FAIR Act and how to implement it in the curriculum. And then we furthermore did a full pull-out of all social science teachers in high school. We're at that stage. At this point, we're collecting information, which Dr. Cash, I'm sure, will share with you soon, on what teachers have implemented from their learnings. And they're in different places. So our next step now is to re-engage and have more of a coordinated approach. It's an intimidating topic for a lot of teachers. It's scary to some teachers. So what we've done with that organization, Jeffrey Stewart and UCSB, is to make it something that's exciting to look at, and we believe we have accomplished that. But the knowledge of implementing and seeking primary documents, those things are still something they struggle with. So that's our next step, is being able to provide more of those kind of training so they can actually start implementing it more in a coordinated way.
What you'll get from me is a brief summary, some less brief than others. And what you'll get from me is a brief summary, some less brief than others, on what they've done in relationship to implementing the FAIR Act. And for some schools, it's extraordinarily comprehensive. You'll see what we've done as a district.
That's great. I was actually just thinking a little bit more broadly, because I noticed that there's some topics that are embedded in other
Yes.
subject-specific ones, and others that are treated as a separate entity as a
Yes.
whole. So I mean, I guess thinking of cultural proficiency, it's been embedded in some of the work we do, but we've also done work that is only about
Yes.
cultural proficiency.
So the goal is very interesting. We know in English language arts and in social science, you can involve so much of the FAIR Act. A part of our discussion about our cultural proficiency plan is to unveil people, or to open people's eyes to the possibilities. Right now, it's very concrete, and many people need something to say, need a scripted lesson or something, but they haven't expanded their minds to the possibilities. We feel that our cultural proficiency journey will allow for that to happen.
And you will be getting our cultural proficiency equity plan for your review. It's either at the next board meeting or the board meeting after that. I don't recall off the top of my head.
Yes.
Other board members, any comments on this document or the PowerPoint is much more of a summary, and it looks like it's all 12, 13, and 13, 14. Yeah. There's just a little bit of 14, 15 in there on one section. But this larger document, and I'm assuming it's just because there are a number of things in 14, 15 that are still to be determined.
Yes.
That's what I'm seeing when I look at the differences between the two, but you are working on them.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Simone?
This is helpful. It's just really helpful to see it both summarized and the plan, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. And we'll keep following that, and of course, you know that the board always likes to attend things whenever we can, and I know a number of board members have taken advantage of that when it worked with their schedules, so we really appreciate being included when we can be.
And we have an ambitious year this year, so we'll be sure to give you the calendar of all the events that are taking place.
Great. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item H, and that's returning to consent items, which we don't have any. And then I, coming events, just a reminder again about the United Way Day of Caring coming up. And I don't know if there's anything else, Mr. Herron?
I'll just mention one. I got an email today urging us to get the word out about Saturday, September 27th is a National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. Last year, in April, 390 tons of prescription drugs were collected at over 6,000 sites. And we want drugs out of our system. We want it out of our campuses. And one way to get them out of the cabinet of the kids' houses, too. Yeah. So anything we do can get the word out, maybe through e-news, just that there is a special day to turn in any prescription drugs that are outdated and not used.
And does that email say where in Santa Barbara to return them?
Any Santa Barbara Sheriff Office substation has a drop-off box.
Can you send that to me? Because I would like, that is a huge issue. I'd like to get that out to all of our schools.
I drop mine off out there by Costco, next to, in front of the theaters. There's a station, they have a box right there. You can put them right in. So it's a great way to get your cabinet cleaned out. So September 27th, National Prescription Drug Take Back Day.
Great. And the United Way Day of Caring is on September 20th. Ms. Simone?
And since we are speaking about healthy people and healthy communities, let's remind everyone that the health fair is this Saturday from 10 to 2 o'clock at Bonet Park on the west side next to the Boys and Girls Club.
We can be busy every Saturday this month. Mm-hmm. All right. And future agenda items, board members, Dr. Paz.
I would like to see if we can dedicate a conference agenda item to looking at, every meeting we are presented with some data. And sometimes it comes on a certain schedule that we can think of in the back of our mind, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just comes. And so I would like for us as a board to consider working with staff to develop a data schedule when things come out, so we have some time to anticipate things coming out. And I really even would love the district to even consider having a data team that looks at data, that we're looking at data. I really still feel strongly that the way for us to move things is to constantly be looking at data. I would love this room filled with data that we are looking at it on an ongoing basis, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to move us. We hear a lot of information, some of it anecdotal, some of it whatever we hear. But at the end of the day, it's that data that's really going to drive us. And I feel that we as a district need to place a heavier emphasis as we move forward, especially with Common Core state standards. We're going to be looking at that in a new way. We don't know all the data elements that we're going to be collecting in terms of that, but even anticipation to that, I think as a board, it would be a good thing for us to kind of think about how we're going to approach that as we move forward. So I would love for us to even think about that a little ahead of time.
Do you want to tell them, Madam President, or should I?
You should.
We will have, in October, we're going to be presenting to the board the proposed metrics for our LCAP and how all the data that we'll be looking at.
Great.
And that will have some very specific data points, and by its nature, you'll see how it would be scheduled out for your presentation. So
great.
That's coming.
Yeah. What you're saying, Dr. Paz, sounds like maybe we could adapt that to include things like timelines. When do we see this normally? Is this something, it's sort of a broader discussion about it.
Yeah, and I think, for a board, it's a very practical thing for us to have, because I think we're always looking for that kind of information. I think all of us do, whether it's financial data or information gleaned from teachers, information gleaned from students. We're always looking for that. But I think even in general, when we've mentioned a number of times in the public desire to know some of these pieces of information that they would like to know, they would have a better sense of when to find certain pieces of information on the board agenda or items presented to the board. I think that would be really helpful in that regard as well.
All right. Any other future agenda items? All right, with no objection then, I'm going to take advantage of item K and adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you on September 23rd at our next regular board meeting.